today. Anthony Treash, Pro Football Focus, joins us. And Anthony, the good news is this, obviously, again, you're a busy man. I'm a busy man. When you have a game like you had on Saturday, it's not really a whole lot to talk about, man. Anyways, what's going on, brother? I appreciate you. Great to see you again.
Yeah, happy we were able to get this worked out. Busy time of the year, the end of the
Yeah.
season. It's crazy that we're at this point, but yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to go deep into watching the game back over with the coach's film like I normally do. But on first take, I mean, it's hard to think that I'm going to see anything positive out of it because it was just an overall bad performance. I think like the biggest takeaway is just the defensive effort. It was kind of shocking.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the game, man. The only positive, of course, being Beamer ball, special teams, but you surrender 374 yards rushing. You go scoreless offensively. It's interesting. Spencer Rattler was actually efficient in the game. Didn't turn the ball over. But, I think play calling issues, schematic issues strike yet again. But, yeah, we'll start. Let's look at the Florida side of things, really, because that Gators running attack. I mean, I'll tell you this, Anthony. I felt confident on Florida all week. I felt like they'd be able to run the ball. I thought South Carolina after a game against Vandy where maybe they got their feet back under them, they'd be able to take advantage of a bad Florida defense. I mean, statistically, they were bad going in that game. But again, I thought Florida would be able to run it, but 374 yards, can't say I saw that coming. I mean, it was a Gators offensive line that just shoved around South Carolina all day long, and obviously they've got capable backs. Anthony Richardson played a good game, but what'd you see from Florida? Again, I know you said you haven't been able to go back and watch the coaches' tape, but those numbers are jaw dropping for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Florida's got a lot of talent. They were always a team for me where, even before the season, I was like, I think they're just a little bit, they got some room to improve. A lot of raw talent. And South Carolina, honestly, was in the same boat. Expectations were a little bit higher there. But I mean, with Florida in particular, I mean, it was just, I mean, as good of an offensive performance on first review that I've seen from them all year long. I think Anthony Richardson, again, he's still a guy that's got a long ways to go. I know a lot of people said he could be the first overall pick. It's not going to happen this year. But he's got the tools, and I think he kind of saw that a little bit. But also, I mean, up front with Florida's offensive line, they have some guys on there. I love Osiris Torrance, the guard they got from Louisiana, came over with Billy Napier. I honestly think he's probably the best guard in college football. They got some other very talented players too. But, I mean, it was just – I mean, for South Carolina, entering the year, I think one of our first conversations, why, I was excited to see South Carolina football, and I think everybody else was, is that you look at that, people on defense, and they have some guys on there, right? It was just about whether or not they could reach their full potential. I don't think they have this year, and I think we kind of saw that in that Florida game. Just kind of having some of those types of guys that South Carolina has just get manhandled like they did up front. I mean, it was just a pretty disappointing effort overall. And then, you look at the run defense overall throughout the season, and it's just been super, super spotty. And over the course of the year, the full body of work it's one of the worst in the Power Five. So definitely an area of concern. And as they close out the season, it's something to keep an eye on for next year.
Anthony, do you think South Carolina would be better off offensively if they just lined up in the punt formation every play and let Kai Kroger throw it? Because I don't know. Some people are saying Kai Kroger for QB1.
I don't know about that. I think Iowa's probably the only program that could probably get away with that. But no, I mean, that's an encouraging aspect of it. Again, I've talked about it a lot, and doing some work too, just with the NBC, part of our contract here with their Notre Dame broadcast, and talking about special teams. And it's the same conversation because they blocked like 7 punts this year. It's coaching's key. That's where it really shows, and that's where Beamer ball shows. And I think it goes back to the overall picture of it, where it's like, hey, the sky's not falling. Hasn't been, the year that maybe Tennessee fans have gotten the pleasure of, that I think some South Carolina fans thought was possible. And I thought could have happened. It was a small % chance, but could have happened. But overall, you still got to be impressed with it because, again, special teams, that's a product of coaching more than anything. I think more than what you see on offense and defense. And some people will argue that based off of the offense's performance this year, which I think is a little bit of an outlier in a bad way. But, overall, I guess that is an encouraging aspect of it. And again, the sky's not falling. And that's another piece of the puzzle there. But no, you still got to have 7 back there to drop back. You're no benching Spencer Rattler. There's no reason to do that.
Yeah. You look at Tennessee, obviously a really tough task for the Gamecocks this weekend. I mean, again, you do what you did against Florida, and now you basically face the best offense in college football. When you look at the Volunteers, I mean, they've had one hiccup against Georgia, who that's extremely understandable. Just scored 66 on Mizzou, which ranked as one of the best defenses in the conference. They just did quick work with them. I mean, what makes Tennessee so good? Because I've heard from people that it's extremely simple, like it's nothing crazy, but they just got guys running wide open. Hendon Hooker's incredible. What I thought was interesting, I think Kirby Smart said this, but I heard somebody bring it up. People don't realize how much Tennessee runs the ball. Like they run the ball more than they throw it, I believe. So when you look at Tennessee, like what jumps out at you that just makes them so tough to stop?
Yeah, I mean that's a big part there, the run game, because I mean it is a super simple offense, and that's why you won't hear me say it. You're not going to hear a lot of people say Hendon Hooker's probably he's going to get drafted, but it's not going to be probably a first round guy. I would be shocked if he got in the first round, and I think it would be a little bit of a mistake. He's perfect for what Tennessee's doing, but it's a super simple offense, and you look at what Coach Heupel brings, and I've talked a little bit about it, but they're just super spread out. They'll spread you out more than any other Power Five team will. They don't run that condensed stuff, and they play with tempo. They play fast, and they have fast receivers. Jalen Hyatt, one of the fastest receivers in college football, he fits that system like a glove. And you look at the run game. The big thing there is you have good backs, but you have Hendon Hooker, who's also a threat on the ground. And I think, honestly, that's probably his best attribute, what he can do in the ground game. He can carry out the offense from a passing perspective. Obviously, there's no doubt about that. But the threat of him on the ground, it adds a completely different element to this offense that makes it as dangerous as it is, because now you got to worry about pretty much everything, right? And at that point, if they have the numbers, they will run it on you. They'll run those zone reads, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. But at the same time, if you try to load it up, you try to stop the run, that's all right. You play that single high safety. We're going to have Jalen Hyatt run a 9 route down the sideline, and we're going to get a 45-yard touchdown, whatever it may be. I mean, that's essentially the formula. There's no complex reads at the quarterback position, a lot of play action. You have those RPOs in there as well. It is just I think probably a masterclass on, how to be successful. And, I remember, I probably need to do some digging work to pull these up. Me and my pal Seth Galina here at PFF, we talked about this hire with Coach Heupel a few years ago when he came over from UCF, and we were very curious to see how this offense was going to translate. But we thought it would translate pretty well. I'm going to be curious to see how defenses defend it in the years to come and how they can kind of adjust to it. But right now, it's as potent as advertised, and it's going to be really tough. And I think you look at the South Carolina defense right now. I mean, Tennessee could very well have their way with this group.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Anthony, this feels like a game as many as Tennessee wants to score versus as many as South Carolina can score. I hate to say that, but that's what it feels like, at least. It's honestly, Anthony, it's just so frustrating talking South Carolina's offense because, again, we just had Savell Newton, former Gamecocks quarterback, call in. I've talked to Steven Garcia. I've talked to many others. And, I mean, we're literally going into the 11th game of the season talking about identity. And it's just like, what are we talking about? Like you are what you are. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you're going to go out there and throw up another goose egg, but, we've seen this offense at times have a little bit of success. But it's like, I don't even know where to start in regards to talking about, well, this is what South Carolina should do offensively against Tennessee. Because it's like, it doesn't even matter who they're playing at this point, man. It's outside of Vandy. They've struggled in practically every single SEC game to move the football. And I think that's why inevitably you're going to see changes at offensive coordinator. I know Tennessee hasn't been great defensively, but I think this is more about South Carolina's issues versus what Tennessee's got going on.
100%. It's to the point where, as said each week, it's just like, maybe we'll see it this time. We saw it against Vandy, but as we talked about, it's Vandy. I know they had a big win against Kentucky, but they're still defensively, they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But, I think you got to look at this group at this point and just kind of recognize just everything, not just, Spencer's, I would say, struggles, but really everybody. The whole Jaheim Bell situation too. It's just very suspect in a way, and we don't know what those conversations are behind closed doors. We don't know, how people are communicating. We don't know who's kind of, if there's a lot of, you can be listened to, but not necessarily heard, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's kind of going on there with the way everything's being constructed, but from an offensive perspective. But yeah, it's just very questionable. And at this point, it's hard imagining we're going to see anything different from every other SEC game outside of the Vandy one this weekend and probably the next week too. It's going to take a collective team effort to pull some miracle out, and to be quite honest. So it's just it's head shaking in a way. And, at least I guess if there's a glass half full approach to this, you're probably going to see 7 return next year. And, I think that's when you can kind of get those expectations and hopes back up with potentially a new person running and designing the offense. And because again, it's not like this is a former 5-star recruit. Like you look at the JT Daniels situation, everybody said when he transferred to Georgia, oh, this is a Heisman guy. He's gonna be excellent, whatever. I mean, JT hadn't been playing great. Like his freshman year before he tore his ACL, sophomore year, he was objectively bad, right? He was not good. Spencer Rattler, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum. He's shown he can play at a super high level. So I guess that's the glass half full approach. And again, at this point, South Carolina's in a bowl game. I mean, there's still at this point where South Carolina was a couple of years ago. I've seen you tweet it. It's just the fact that they're competing is quite impressive. Yeah. So I guess there is plenty of reason to be excited. But I was actually talking with a few different people, just like the expectations just across the country. Just every single fan base is just really pressuring. And a lot of coaching staffs, as soon as they take over a job, it's no longer like, hey, we got a few years. We got to win this year. I mean, it's you don't have a lot of margin for error there.
Yeah, and I think especially when you factor in what Clemson and Georgia are doing and have done, and I would say this too, and I said this yesterday on social media. Anthony, I think he is back, but I'd love to see Spencer Rattler back under a different OC because I do, and maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. I still believe Spencer Rattler's a good quarterback. I think he's in an extremely flawed system, but I still think he's a good quarterback. And I would say this too. I'd much rather have 7 come back under a new OC than throw out there some guy that's on the roster. And there's capable guys on South Carolina's roster, but nobody who's even remotely proven. So I'd rather roll the dice one more year with this guy, like you said, that's played at that level. And, we'll kind of see what happens. It'll be really interesting to see. Last thing, Anthony, before I get you out of here again, I know you're a busy man and I appreciate you taking the time. Is it as simple as Tennessee is just going to blow the doors off Carolina? Is the 21.5? I think it's really interesting, right? Because I think all the money or most of it is on Tennessee, yet that number sticking at 21.5. I really thought the game was going to open at 24, 24.5. So does Vegas know something we don't, which is typically how it goes, but do they know something we don't? And the Gamecocks are going to play a spirited effort after getting embarrassed in Gainesville? Or do you think Tennessee – because of, just who they are, but also needing style points, right? They need to impress to fight for a playoff spot. How do you see this one playing out? Is it as simple as Tennessee wins and wins big on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still right there with you. I mean, I still think Spencer's a great quarterback, and hopefully he comes back. But as far as this weekend goes, I was pretty surprised too. Honestly, I think this is probably going to be a 30-point game. If everything kind of continues. I mean, if nothing changes, it's got to be a 30-point game. Maybe something does, but that's kind of wishful thinking. I think at this point in the season. So I kind of see it in that 40-10 type of game, 40-13, something like that. So I was kind of surprised with the spread. Maybe they know something. Maybe they're just concerned. Maybe South Carolina having a little bit of a home field there, but. I still think overall this is probably going to be a big Tennessee game. And I'm sorry, that's my puppy squeaking fully in the background.
You're good. You're good. No, I tend to be right there with you. Again, my best bet I dropped her today, man. Tennessee minus 21.5. It might lose, but hey, either way, either I win money or I'm happily surprised that the Gamecocks played a lot better than I expected. So Anthony Treash, Pro Football Focus, joins us every Wednesday. Anthony, I appreciate you. I know we won't talk to you next week. Obviously, Thanksgiving holiday, people are traveling, all that good stuff. So enjoy your Thanksgiving, my friend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Likewise, brother. Looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.